Hello, and welcome back to what should be the last video in this series. What we're going to do now is go back to the Sprite Manager, and we're going to change it from using the Sprite Manager script to using the the linked Sprite Manager script. Now, because we're using the linked Sprite Manager script, there's a couple of things that we're going to have to change inside of our Game Manager CS file. Basically, all that is removing the stuff from the update code. And the reason why we can remove it is if you remember from previous conversations or the previous videos that the Link Sprite Manager intrinsically performs the transform operation on every sprite that's associated with it. So what happens is at every frame it's going to reposition the vertices that make up the quads that are the sprites that are inside of that sprite manager. So instead of having to loop through all of your sprites in an update every frame, this will do it all automatically. So with those changes in place, we should be able to run it and we still get the same result. We get our 5 bouncing basketballs and they still respond to physics and everything works just the way it's done all along. Now, one of the things to remember, and let me show you this as well, is when you're working with this, either the Sprite Manager or the Link Sprite Manager, because it is adding all those vertices into a single mesh, it only needs a single draw call. So no matter how many sprites you've got, it's only going to use one draw call because at the end of the day, all those vertices that make up all the sprites go into this one mesh, which gets sent to this one mesh renderer, which results in just that one draw call. Now, the thing that you need to take into consideration, once again, with the Link Sprite Manager, is you only want to use it for things that you know are going to be moving most of the time. In our case here, with these basketballs, they're using Unity physics, and throughout the entire playing of the demonstration, until they get to the very end, they're always moving every single frame. So we're not taking a performance hit by using the Sprite Manager. But if you're making, say, a giant Super Mario clone, and you have a whole bunch of blocks and static elements that are just there, and they don't move from frame to frame, if you were using the Link Sprite Manager, it's going to redraw all of those vertices every single frame. Even though they're not moving, they're still getting repositioned and moved, and they're being moved back to the exact same location that they were originally. So you don't see any change in their position, but it's still performing all of those calculations, and that is resources that you are wasting trying to reposition things that aren't moving. So it's best to just use the Sprite Manager for things that are going to be static and Link Manager or the Link Sprite Manager for the things that are going to be in motion. If you've got a lot of objects that are going to be in different states where they're going to be stationary sometimes and moving at other times, what you can do is encapsulate them into a class that is able to check their state and then knows whether or not it's moved. And if it's been moved, then have it call a transform on that sprite so that its position is moved. So you're in between. You've used static. Your static stuff doesn't move. You just use the sprite manager as normal. For stuff that's always moving, use the link. And for things that are moving partially or sometimes and moving at other times, use the sprite manager and then manually you call the sprite manager transform to update those sprites. And with that being said, that is everything that I wanted to show you with setting up this demonstration using both the Unity and the Sprite Manager scripts. There's one other little thing I want to show you. With working with 2D, You may have noticed this in the videos depending on the quality that you're looking at, but there's a lot of jagged edges along our sloped floors, and when we're playing, the basketballs do have some little bit of jagginess to them. Sorry, my bad. Let me pause that. So there's a way that you can fix this if you want a little bit better quality. If you have a fairly high-end machine and you've got processing power, graphic power to spare, you can come in and go to, let's see, quality. All right, why did it do it? Okay, quality and fantastic. All right, good. So now it's there, and we play, and our playback looks a little bit better. Again, apologize for me forgetting where that is, but I'm really tired. But with that, that's the end of this series. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to make.